Hi, welcome back to Therapy Designs. If you're new to this channel, my name is Kelly and this channel is all about print-on-demand everything. I wanted to thank you first of all for helping me to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone. It made for a great birthday this week, so thank you very much. There will be more videos to come, and of course if you have any ideas for videos or things that you'd like to see covered, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I do try to get back to them as quickly as I can. So if you're interested in learning how to create some print-on-demand designs, go ahead and stick around. So in today's video, we're going to be going ahead and making this design right here. This is just a really cool T-Rex dinosaur design, but the technique that I want to show you specifically in this video is about how to stack frames and use textures. So you'll notice that there are a lot of different layers in this design, a lot of different textures in this design. So if you would like to learn how to do this, please stick around. So as always, we're going to go ahead and start with our blank backdrop. It is 4,500 by 5,400 pixels, and I'm going to be designing for black again today. So I'm just going to start by selecting my blank page, going up to the top left-hand corner, and it will say background color. If you click on that, then you can select any background color you like. I'm going to select black because it is the most popular selling t-shirt color, so it's always good to optimize your designs for that, unless you're going for something else, specific, like a particular color. So today I'm going to be doing a lot of layering of frames and layering of textures. So it's going to be a really cool kind of T-Rex dinosaur design. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my bottom layer, and I'm going to work up to the top. The reason I'm going to do this is that whenever I'm using frames, once I put the image in the frame, I'm going to have to lock it. Otherwise, anything I put on top will also automatically go into that frame. And once I lock it, it becomes very difficult to kind of move the layers around. So starting with the bottom layer, I'm going to go over to the left-hand column, and I'm going to go up to where it says Elements. And here I'm just going to go ahead and type in frames. And you'll see when you type in frames, there'll be a frames area here, but the one that you want, if you go down, is the one that's got a little bit of a heart to it, and it looks like it's got a little mountain and sunset, kind of like sun in it. So this is the frames that you want if you want frames that you can put images in. If you click on the other frames, you're going to get things like picture frames, but not things that you can put images into. So you want to click the one that says frames and has the little heart, and it will bring you up to your frames section. All of the frames will have little, green hills and a sunny background in it. This is where you can put the pictures in. And so you can use any of these frames. They're constantly adding new ones, so every time I look, there's new frames to choose from. So you always want to, check out the frame section, see if there's anything new that you want to use or that you want to work with. Today, I'm mostly going to be using this circle frame, but the background, the very bottom frame, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I kind of want a little bit of a jagged edge, so I think I'm going to go with this one here because it's just going to give me kind of a very uneven backgrounds. And so I don't think there's anything else that looks this good for what I'm doing. I can scroll down. You can be on here for a while looking at what it is you want. I've already kind of looked through this, so I know that this is the frame that I want to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and start here. So this frame, this is going to be my bottom layer, and this is the one I'm going to want to mostly fill the whole screen. So I'm going to pull it out so it's real big, and I pretty much want it to go edge to edge. So it's taking up the whole printing area of the shirt. I'm going to make sure I've got it centered, and I'm going to make sure it's a little bit more towards the top than the bottom. And so I'm liking the way it's sitting right here. So this is my background frame. Now for this frame, I'm going to be doing kind of a green, tan. Everything here is going to be sort of more natural, earthy tones that we're doing today. So I'm going to go up to Elements, and now I'm going to get rid of my frames. I'm going to be looking for textures or backgrounds. So you can type backgrounds, you can type textures, you can do colored textures, dark textures, you can do stone textures or canvas textures. So kind of whatever you want. I mean, if I just put in green and texture, Oops, I'm still in my frame section. Gotta make sure we're out of frames. Okay, out of my frames. So I'm gonna put green texture. And it's gonna come up with a lot of different green textures for me. And you can try a lot of them out. It's real easy. So let's say I tried this one, I just drag and drop. And so I might like that one. It's, you know, it's got a little bit of a textured feel to it, nothing too special. But if I want to keep scrolling down and try out other things, I can. So if I wanted something maybe a little darker, I could do that one. And I do kind of like that one's got a cool texture to it too. And so you can just sort of drag and drop as much as you like. Once you have the texture you want though, we're going to go ahead and lock this layer down. So it helps to kind of look at everything, all of your elements ahead of time to have a good idea of which elements you want to use. So if this is, you know, let's say the texture that you want, you would go ahead and stick with it. You can always look, see if you can find some more. This one's got a cool kind of canvasy look. And I can move, if I double click on the frame, it'll pull up the picture, and then I can move and adjust the picture within the frame however I want. So maybe I want a little bit more of the dark edges. I can do something like that so it kind of blurs out into the dark a little bit better. And I do kind of like the way that that one looks. And by the way, these being photos and all, I can still use photo effects on them. So even though it's in a frame, if I click on my image here and I go to edit image, I can still do some adjustments. So if I wanted it to maybe lose a little saturation, I could go down with the saturation that way. If I wanted to bring up the saturation, obviously I could go that way. So you can definitely play with it a little bit. If I wanted it to be a little bit darker or a little bit brighter, I could do it that way too. I am going with a pretty kind of dark color right there. I can play with the contrast a little bit. So that's gonna make it flatter. That's gonna give it a lot of good contrast. So I do kind of like the contrast. So I might just play with it a little bit. And once I get it the way I like it, I'm gonna go ahead and lock this frame into place. So to do that, I'm just going to click on it. And now in the top right-hand corner, you're gonna see something that looks like a little padlock. This is what you're going to do. You're going to lock that down. Now this will keep the frame from moving, okay? But you're gonna actually have to lock it twice because even though the frame can't move, I can still drop new images into the frame. So that's what we don't want to happen. So I'm just gonna push back here or undo. If you accidentally do something you don't want, you can always just click undo. It'll just take you right back to the last step, so it's really easy to correct. So now I'm gonna have to lock this down again. So now I come up here and I can click lock a second time. Now the frame is totally locked, nothing will go into it. So now if I was to take another image and try to drop it in, it will not drop in. So this is how I'm going to be able to stack my, my frames. So I can put one frame on top of the other without losing any of my backdrop. So now I've got my cool background image. Now because it's on black, it kind of fades in, you can't see it. That's the look that I'm going to want for the shirt. But maybe it's a little bit hard to design because I do want to know where my edges are. If that's the case and you're using some real dark colors, you can always change your background color temporarily. So maybe I'll do a dark gray. That way I can really see where the edges are. So I kind of lost that edge up there because it was really dark and I kind of lost that edge there. Keep in mind that when we download this, we're downloading it with a transparent background and it can go on any color shirt or any color backdrop. So the backdrop you use to design on really doesn't matter. It just helps with optimizing your design. All right, so the next layer I'm gonna do is going to be a circle. So I'm gonna go right back up to my frames and I'm gonna hit frames again. I'm gonna make sure I get the right frames, the one with the little heart next to it. And this time I'm gonna be using the circle frame. And I'm actually gonna be using the circle frame 3 different times. So I'm gonna start by bringing this circle out. And again, I'm gonna be centering the circle. And this is my bottom circle. I want it to be pretty big. So it's gonna fill, again, most of the screen. Something like that, maybe a little bigger. I do want to be able to see some of my green popping out on either side. So this might be a good size to work with. And so now I'm going to go ahead and pick a texture to go in here. For this texture, again, I want to do something that is darker, a little bit more earth tones. I did, before I did this video, look at a lot of different textures. And so I can come up to where it says recently used and I can put see all. And then I can just scroll down through my recently used textures. So I have a lot of different, you know, designs or pictures that I liked, and so I can select from here. So it's a little bit easier than having to constantly, you know, go back and forth. So if you want to save your pictures ahead of time, that's easy to do too. And so now I'm looking for something kind of more of a brown. So maybe more like one of these is gonna look good for what I'm doing here. So let's try a few of these. So I'm gonna put that in there. It's a little bit light, but I do like it. I'm gonna be putting another circle on top, so I'm gonna lose the middle. So what I'm really gonna get is just this sort of border circle. That's what I'm looking at. So I just wanna make sure I've got some good texture, that the brown and the green look like they're complementing each other. I don't want any like, you know, clashing colors per se. There's another one. That one looks like it blends in a little bit too much. I'm not quite getting the edge that I at least got with the lighter one. And there's one here. This again has some good texture around the edges. And I can kind of see how it goes with the background there. Again, I can always double click it. And so I can move, you know, my picture around in the frame so I can get as dark of an edge as I want. If I come this way, I'm going to have a really dark edge. If I come this way, it's going to be a little bit lighter. Again, because this is just going to be my background frame, I do need it to be a little bit light, so maybe something like that. So this one is looking good. It looks like it matches good. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this photo here. And I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to lock this in place. Now I'm going to have to lock it twice. So the first one stops the frame from moving. Okay. I click on it, and now I'm going to lock it one more time. That's going to stop me from being able to accidentally drop any photos into this frame. And so now we're just going to keep layering. So in my recently used, I have my circle, so I don't even have to go back to frames. I can just use my circle from recently used. Now I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to stretch it out. And here I'm going to put it just in front of the other circle, leaving just a thin little border. So that's really the border that I wanted, was just that little border. And now here I'm going to go ahead and put another texture. This time I'm going to put, I was thinking more of dark stone colored. So that one looks really good with the stone. That one looks really good with the stone. Any of like the blacks, I was looking at some of these blacks earlier. And so I had a lot of different dark textures that I wanted to be able to try out. So for example, here's one of the dark textures. This is a little bit more textured than the rest of them in terms of being a little bit rougher. So it depends whether or not you want the textures to be close to one another or a little bit different. This is a little bit lighter than the other colors. I do want it to be darker. So again, you can just sort of play. I think this is the one that I ended up liking the most. And again, I can play with where it falls in here. So if I did something like that, I can get a little bit of this marbling down here. And so that looks kind of cool. Or I can bring it all the way over here, and I get a little bit darker there. So I can sort of play with how I want it. Whoops. If you make a mistake, remember, just hit the undo button and it'll take you right back. If, for example, I like the way that this looks, but I really want the dark end over here versus over here. Of course, I can rotate it. I can also still flip it. So if I click on this and I just put flip horizontal, now I've got the dark edge on this side. So you can see how I can easily, again, play with this to get it however I want. And so I could do something like that even. And so, you know, again, you've got a lot of different options here on how you want to do it. I actually think I liked it better with the lines coming this way. And so I might, again, bring it there. And I think I'm going to use that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just lock this layer in place. So I'm going to click lock. And I'm going to do it one more time. And now all of these layers are locked. So you can see how now it would be kind of hard to go back and adjust some of these other layers that are underneath. So it's a lot easier for you if you get everything layered the way you want it first and work backwards up to front. You know, you could always drag things out of the way and create a second page. There's definitely ways around it if you make a mistake, but it's just easier for me. I find that if I work from the back layer to the front. Okay, so now I'm going to put in my main design, which is going to be my dinosaur. So I did a search for dinosaurs. There's a lot of different dinosaurs. There's some realistic ones. In fact, if you go to photos, even though there's no real live dinosaurs to take photos from, there's still a lot of dinosaurs in the photo section. So if I put dinosaur, oops, helps if I can spell, which I can't today. So you'll see if I put just dinosaur, you're going to get a lot of like little kids dinosaurs and other stuff. So what I can do is search by photos, and now I'm going to get a lot of really cool photo dinosaurs. And so you can kind of pick anything you want. You can have one with a background or one without a background, doesn't matter. If you have one with a background, you can do a background removal on it, you know, or you can use part of that background in your circle frame, and that can look good too. So you got a lot of choices. Again, I wanted something a little bit more ferocious, something darker in color. I was going for more of that T-Rex feel. So the one that I ended up selecting, if I just go back to my recently used, was this dinosaur here. So I really liked the way he looked. Now I can use the whole dinosaur and have him something like that, and that looks pretty cool too. Or I can zoom in, which is what I want to do, and get a little bit more of his head. I'm going to cut out most of the body here because I just really want a big head shot. And so for this, because I'm going to be cutting out most of his body, let's say I just want to crop this first, because I'm going to be cropping pretty tight on him. Something like that. If I put his head here, I kind of want it to be more on this side. If I put it here, he looks like he's looking off the frame. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip him. Okay, so now I can put his head a little bit more to the right of the frame. And I'm going to pull him way down and get him kind of where I want him, about the size that I want him. And then I can go from there. So you can see I'm going to want his head to poke out of the frame a little bit. I am still going to want to get a little bit of this background in here. There's a reason I put the background there. So something more like that. I can blow them up a little bit more, so I just lose the arm entirely, so I don't have that just little cropped area. And I can bring him over a little bit more, so I do get a little bit of the background on this side. All right, so I'm thinking something like that. I might like. Okay. So now if you're wondering what I'm going to do about the rest of his body, I'm going to put him in a circle frame so that he looks like he's right cut off in line with this frame. So he's just going to look like he's in this frame. To do that, again, I'm just going to use a circle frame. But the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add a page just so I have a little bit more room to work, and I'm going to duplicate him. Actually, before I duplicate him, if I'm going to do any kind of editing in terms of the color or the saturation, you want to do that first. If you're going to put any kind of filter on it, you're going to do that first, because we're going to need 2 identical copies of this dinosaur. So, you know, make sure you have him the way you want him, and then we'll make a duplicate copy. So it looks pretty good now, but let's say I just wanted to darken him up a teeny bit, and let's say I wanted to maybe throw on a little bit of contrast. I can do it that way. And so that looks pretty good. If I did want to put any kind of filters on him, I could do that now too. So there's a lot of different filters you could use. Photogenic is a good one if you're looking for filters to get some different like warm tones or cool tones, or, you know, a little bit more vivid. Stark is good, soft, vintage if you want to go black and white, or do something a little bit weirder down here. So this is usually the way that I'm going to go if I'm looking for filters. And I kind of like the way he is, so I'm not really going to use a filter. I like the way he's looking, so I'm just going to stick with none and stick with him how he is. And now that I have him the way I want him, I am going to duplicate. So you click on the image you want to duplicate, you hit Control-D on your keyboard, and it's going to make another dinosaur. So I just put it right on top so I can pull this one right down. And so now you can see I've got 2 identical dinosaurs. So I'm going to be working with the first one here. I'm going to put him inside of a frame. So I'm going to use that circle frame again, so I can go back to my recently used, find my circle frame. I'm going to put it right on top of the black, or the black circle frame here. Now if you want to see if it's going to line up perfectly, because I can take my dinosaur sort of off the page a little bit, I can always use some transparency too, to make sure everything is lined up the way I want it. It should be centered. And so if I had everything centered, it'll give me these cross lines. And so it should let me know when I'm in the center. It does need to be a tiny bit bigger. So I'm just gonna inch it up little by little because I really want this to fit perfectly on top of the top layer. Okay, so something like that looks pretty good. I can check the transparency. If I come up to this checkered thing up top, there's a little checkered box that says transparency. If I click that and I bring that transparency down, it's gonna allow me to see through my top layer. And so I'll be able to see if I have these edges lined up perfectly. And it looks like I do, so I'm pretty happy with where it's at. So I'm gonna lose the transparency. And now what I'm gonna be doing is putting my dinosaur inside this frame. Boom. And so you can see here's the dinosaur in the frame. I am gonna have to blow him up and put him the size that I want in the location that I want. So again, I'm gonna blow him up, try to get him where I wanted him initially, which was somewhere around here-ish. So I'm gonna cut off the arm there, get a little bit of black, make sure I've got it lined up the way I wanted it. He might be a little bigger than I wanted. Maybe I bring him down just a smidge. Oops. That's good. So you'll see when I put him in the frame, it went ahead and cut off his whole body, and now I just have the dinosaur in this frame. But now you're like, oh man, I'm missing the top of his head. That looks stupid. No problem. We're gonna go ahead and now stack this bottom dinosaur on top of this one, and we're gonna go ahead and have his head pop out of the frame. Now again, to make sure I don't lose any part of my frame, I'm gonna have to lock this one in place too. So same process, I'm gonna click on it, come to the right-hand corner where that padlock is, I'm gonna lock that, and then I'm gonna have to do it one more time. So now it is totally locked. So now everything on this page is locked, nothing is moving, and now I'm gonna take my dinosaur from the bottom page, I'm gonna bring him up. I can delete this bottom page here, just hit delete. And now what I'm trying to do is line up my dinosaurs perfectly so that one dinosaur fits perfectly over the other one. Now that also means I'm gonna have to make sure that they're the same size. And so I can do kind of like a little quick lineup just by sight here. Try to get my edges equal, and then what I'll do is I'll use the transparency to make sure I've got everything really lined up perfectly the way I want it. So starting with this body here, a little bit bigger. Okay, so that is looking pretty close. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make this top layer transparent. So again, I'm gonna go to the checkered box in the top right. I'm gonna bring the transparency of the top dinosaur down. This way I can see through and try to make sure that I've got everything lined up pretty even. So it's gonna show me where my edges are. So what I want is to see all of the edges looking like they're lined up perfectly when I do this. Now specifically, I'm looking at sort of the teeth area and the eyes. If I can line up the little spots, it's gonna help. I think he moves a little bit, so he's not perfectly lined up, but it is pretty close. I'm gonna crop this top layer the way I want it. I'm gonna pull the top layer, and if I crop up, I'm gonna crop all the way until I lose his body in the frame. And so now you'll see I've lost the body. And so now I'm looking to see if there's a line going through here or if everything looks like it's lined up pretty well. And honestly, that looks like it's lined up pretty well. So I think that that is pretty good. So now you can see my dinosaur, his head is popping out of the frame. I've got some awesome textures here. I'm just about done. I really like the way that this is looking. I think maybe I'm gonna add some claw marks just to finish off the design. So again, I'm just gonna go ahead. I can go to my elements and I can do a search for claw marks. And I can pick any claw marks that I like. I think I'm just gonna go with these top ones here. And what I'm gonna do is kind of size them the way I want them. Have them sticking out just a little bit. And then I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to get the claw marks, and I think I'm going to have them come down here and kind of stick off the bottom of the page too. So I'm going to have it go something like that. And then I think I want these claw marks to be kind of a burgundy red. So again, still going with some of these earthy tones, but I want to do more of a warm vibe here. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to start with sort of a reddish tone. And then I can go to where it says add additional color. If I click on that, now I can play with the colors. I'm going to bring this a little bit more towards the red. So it's already a little bit more burgundy. Maybe a little bit. You have to play with it a little bit to get it kind of how I like it. And so once you kind of find that color you want, something like that looks pretty good. It does have a little bit of a red tone to it, a little bit of a brown tone to it. It's still pretty dark. I can go ahead, put change all down here. It'll change the bottom one too, so that now they're the same color. So I've got the same color here and here. And now what I want is for the claw marks to look like they're coming out from behind the circle of the dinosaur. So I'm going to go ahead and send these backwards. So if I click on this, what I can do is right click and a box will come up, and you see it says send backwards or send to back. In this case, I don't want to send to back because that will put it behind the green. So I want it to actually be behind the dinosaur, but in front of the green background. So I can just put send to backwards, and that will send it back one layer at a time, and you can keep doing that until you get it where you want it. So I'm just going to start with send background, and you can see it put it right behind the dinosaur's head, and so that actually looks pretty good there. It depends whether or not I want it to look like it's cropping this circle off. So I can always move it a little bit, now you can't tell, or I could send it backwards again to make sure that it's behind sort of the circle border. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to send it backwards, and it put it behind this top layer, but it's still in front of that one, so I'm going to send backwards again. Now it's behind the dinosaur, but it's in front of this circle, so I'm going to send it backwards again, and I'm just going to repeat that process, perfect, until I have it where I want it. So right there is pretty good. I just don't want it to go behind the green. And so that's looking pretty awesome. So now if I throw this on a black background, I'm going to go ahead and just click my background, come up to where it says background color again. I'm going to select black so that you guys can see how this is going to look on a black background. And there you go. So I think that looks pretty awesome for a black background. At this point, you could always add some more flair if you wanted to do like a dinosaur footprint, if you wanted to add any kind of text. Again, you have to make sure your text isn't trademarked. So, but if there is a popular dinosaur saying or something that you think would sound good, that's not trademarked, you could throw some text in here at this point, any other flair that you want. But this is the overall design that I'm going to go with, and I think it looks pretty cool. So all we've done here is just do a lot of layering of different textures. Of course, when we're working with frames, we didn't have to put a photo in these frames. You could have just selected a color the way you select the background color. But I didn't think that that would look as good with the dinosaur, since this dinosaur has so much texture to it and so many different colors and shades. I didn't think it would look good on top of just a solid background. So I really thought that the texture in the background is really helps make the design pop. So at this point it's done. I'm gonna go ahead and title this. I'm gonna title this T-Rex texture, or whatever you want to title it. If you have, you know, again, any words in it, you might want to do that. But I'm just going to go with T-Rex texture here. I'm going to go to where it says share, and then you can come down to where it says download. From here, you're going to leave it as a PNG, leave the size alone. You're going to select transparent background, and here you'll download. If you had more than one page, you'd be able to select which page you want to download. I only have this one, so I can just select download, and it will be downloading my dinosaur, which I can now put on any shirt I want. And I will show you one more trick as soon as he's done downloading. Okay, there it is. So now that this is done downloading, I can show you one more trick. So here, if I wanted to resize any of this, it would be kind of hard because all of these layers are locked. And if I unlock them, then I run the risk of the top layer falling into the bottom frame. But once I have it saved, now I could take the entire thing and it's one image. I can resize it, I can move it, I could put a filter on the whole thing now. So if I wanted to add a page just to show you, I can drag and drop my download. Get rid of that. And so now it's all one image. So at this point, if I wanted to make it smaller, I could. If I wanted to make it really big, I could. If I wanted to, move it anywhere in the page, let's say it was too high or too low, I could move it. At this point, if I wanted to put any kind of filter over the entire thing so that it all had one filter, I could. So once you've saved it as a PNG, you can do whatever you want with it from this point forward. And so that's kind of cool. And again, I could always use it and put text on it here now if I wanted to as well. So that's just some more options that you have to work with. So if you maybe don't have it centered perfectly, or maybe it's too high or too low in the page, again, no worries, because I can always, download it, put it up here, play with where it is, and then download it again. So easy peasy stuff. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. I'll try to get back to them as quickly as I can. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope to see you again. That's it for today's video. If you found this useful and would like to see more videos with helpful tips and tricks, be sure to hit like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of the weekly videos. As always, keep growing and stay creative, and we'll see you next time.